Hey everyone, this is Sarah Hine coming to you from my lake home with great Wi-Fi. This is take two of this amazing interview that I have the distinct privilege to interview Lauren Ramzinski. I didn't even
That was
did I
good.
say it right?
You did,
Yes,
Ramzinski.
I know her
Yeah.
as Lauren the Guru, and
Oh, you got
and
it.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot to make sure I'm pronouncing her name right. I have just recently met Lauren, obviously, and her story was so compelling and so needed that I just knew in my heart, as soon as I heard about her, I have to have her on one of our interviews for Tuesday Night Mental Wellness, where we just shed light and hope on, topics that are near and dear to so many people's hearts, and that can hopefully shed some hope and solutions to people that might be struggling too. So Lauren comes to us from Texas, and she is a co-owner of a boutique fitness studio, and she is an exercise physiologist. In her words, that's like a really overeducated, very smart person who studied a lot on exercise. But that's pretty darn cool. I'm impressed. She's also an integrative nutrition health coach, and she has coached over thousands of people in the last 20 years of her life. So this is somebody who values health. This is somebody who's been educated on health. So Lauren, with this background, in 2020, you had something happen to your health that rocked your boat. Is that correct?
I did. In November of 2020, like so many people, we were kind of on the lookout for this very, very, very misunderstood, not understood at all, invisible virus, and I got it. And I had a high fever, had lots of body aches, probably felt like the worst flu I ever had. Was down for the count about 12 days, and fever broke, start to feel better. And that was back in 2020, where if you came up positive with COVID, there was still so many unknowns. It was kind of like there's really nothing we can tell you. Stay home, quarantine, take Tylenol for the fever. If for some reason your O2 stats come down, or you have some life-threatening event, then go to the emergency room. And so I stayed home with some Tylenol, and started feeling better, and thought that was that. And then just a little fatigued, a little draggy afterwards. And then started experiencing some interesting things in my body. And they didn't go away. And more interesting symptoms, and they didn't go away. And it was strange. It was scary. Nobody really knew at that point much of anything. There was a lot of fear around this already. So I tell you what, it was scary as all get out. My right leg was completely numb. I had extreme pain in both feet. Neuropathy. I developed neuropathy in both feet. It's a little tough coaching people or doing a group fitness class when your balance is off. I was dizzy all the time, like I had vertigo. The fatigue was indescribable. I would be awake, not asleep, but I physically just couldn't get out of bed. And my digestion was off. It was terrible. And I, Sarah shared a little bit of my background, and I'm not a really sit around, lay around kind of person. And I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes. Something is not right. So I started going to doctors. I started doing therapies. I started getting blood work. I started doing all of these things, and my vitamin D had gone almost down to zero. I wasn't assimilating any B vitamins. There were all kinds of other things. And so I was getting these recommendations from, from medical doctors based on what my blood work and my symptoms were doing. So they were trying to treat specifically those symptoms because everything was idiopathic. We don't know why you have this now, but this is what we normally do for X, Y, and Z.
Wow.
And it was terrible. It was scary. And it was, I wasn't getting any better with any of the interventions. And I actually would feel worse. And I had an x-ray of my spine, and I had had one previously, like 6 months before, through my chiropractor. And in 6 months, all of a sudden it looked like I had arthritis that had progressed over a 20-year period.
Wow.
So the inflammation in my body, I did have.
So it's like it like lit a fire of inflammation in you.
It lit a fire of everything. I was diagnosed then with mast cell activation, meaning you're allergic to everything. The cells that fight, the histamines that fight allergens. It's like the gas pedal being pressed down to both types all the time.
Wow.
So if the weather changed and some pollen blew in, I'd get a fever. My eyes would swell shut all the time. A cytokine storm in my body, all of this stuff that was showing from tests that I was having done. Many of them I had to pay out of pocket. I was lucky to get with early on a COVID long haul study group, because originally I started Googling and I'm like, what is this? What is this? And going rabbit trail. And when I look back, I actually, one good thing about us having to reschedule, I went back and looked, and in a 9-month period, I spent, in 9 months, I spent $13,000 in interventions out of my pocket.
Wow. Wow. So let's kind of recap this. So you were at the very beginning stage of COVID, which is very interesting to me because a lot of my town, my whole family, all got really sick with this flu in 2020, like January and February. And by the time it came out in March, end of March, and we all started to get educated on what the symptoms were, I remember probably wasn't until April of 2020 that I heard this comment that the sore throat is like shards of glass. And I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly how I felt. But that was like when I got really sick in February. And so the reason why I really wanted to do this is I think for a number of reasons. I think we can all look back these last 2 years and we are starting to piece things together.
Right.
And you're piecing things together. And, I truly believe that God turns ashes into beauty. And so all this money out of pocket that you spent, this suffering, I mean, you felt like, can I just say, probably ultimate crap? Does that sum it up?
Oh, it was beyond that. I don't know enough words to really articulate it, but I described it, and within that, I'm a go kind of person. So I operated at a high frequency, and I would use words like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm stressed, or I have anxiety. Before this, I experienced anxiety. I experienced my first panic attack. But it was like, I described it to a friend that it was like me inside my head back here watching life through like a 10-foot plexiglass wall. Like I just couldn't get out.
Jeez, it's like the plexiglass, like
I could
see your nightmare.
Like, yeah, it really
I'm
was.
not trying to make humor, but
no, it was like that's what I said. It was like invasion of the the Twilight Zone, or invasion of the body snatchers episode Rona, for me is what I call it, because it was like I knew I was back there, like a little voice that was me, and I couldn't get out. And I was with a client one day in the studio, and my body hurt. And in talking about the fatigue, it was so crushing and oppressive in my mind, in my body. All of a sudden, I just looked at her and I said, I'm sorry, I've got to go. She was like, okay. I mean, and they kind of knew that I was experiencing something. And
Right.
and my insides were jittering, and my breathing and my respiration kicked up. And I thought, I can't be in here. I can't be in this building. I'm done. I'm just going to write a note to my business partner and be like, take it all. I do not have the energy. I do not have the want to. And that was
Wow.
probably about month 8 afterwards.
I was just going to ask, like, where was this in the timeline? So you went, you got sick, you got better, and then all these very bizarre symptoms came month after month after month after
Right.
month.
And it was kind of like, when you have a really bad flu or
Yep.
something or a cold and you feel better at first. So you're like, yes, I'm on the mend, but you're still not 100%.
Yep.
So you kind of go, you're like 75%, 80%. You kind of hang in 80 for a little bit while everything kind of resets. It was kind of like I got up to 70% and I just hung there, for a couple of weeks. I never really felt good, but I had felt so bad. I was like, yeah,
Right.
made it. I didn't go to the hospital.
Totally makes sense. Yeah.
And so then I just kind of hovered there. And then my feet kept hurting. And then my legs kept hurting. And then this, and then this, and then this. And then it was really it was probably about a month and a half to 2 months afterwards. I was like,
This isn't normal.
I'm going, it's in, and it was real subtle. Something would sneak in. And I realized because I start my day really early. So I'd get up and I'd go see my morning clients. And then I changed my schedule. I'd have to come home and my house is on stilts. And I'd come home and I'd park in the driveway. And there were times I'd sit in my car for like 30 minutes because I'd look at those stairs and I would cry because I knew how hard it was going to be for me to walk up those stairs. But I was so motivated to walk in and lay down in my bed and then I'd pass out and I'd sleep.
Wow.
4 hours, set my alarm, I'd get up, collect myself, go back to work, do some things, and then come back and pass out. And the effect that it had on my business, my friends, my family, my husband, oh my goodness.
It was debilitating. When did you figure out it was long COVID? Let's go to that point now.
So that's when when I felt good. And so I started just doing research. Okay, what is going on with this? Are there other people experiencing this? And actually 60 Minutes, really early on, one of my clients sent me a text and she said, I just watched 60 Minutes. They interviewed this personal trainer that has something they're calling long COVID. And she's going to what they're calling pop-ups of long COVID clinics. And you need to watch it. So I immediately got on and I was like, oh, hi, soul sister. I mean, just the confirmation that I wasn't crazy. And at this point I had been going to doctors that were everybody was very frightened to assign anything that I was experiencing to COVID. I found a group of functional medicine doctors that were doing that were treating some of that. And so when I went through that, I found this COVID long haul clinic. They're doing a research study. I got in, praise Jesus, because they gave me access to testing because they wanted the data of what was going on and said, we can treat anything traditionally that we see in testing that you have. We are lots of parameters about what they're doing and what they're studying and how they're, we're not treating long COVID, we're collecting data, but if you have X, Y, or Z, we can treat it, like we know how to treat it. There's lots of unknowns. And that was very helpful because then I already shared how much money I'd spent. I was able to get an MRI. I was able to get a CT scan. The hard part with that is, yes, you have inflammation in your brain, but we don't know what it looked like before.
Right.
Right. So a lot of these were just benchmark things, but it was very helpful. And then I a diagnosis came back. I had been having lots of digestional and tummy issues with this, afterwards bundled in this, and they said, oh, did you not know that you were a celiac? I'm like, how do you just become a celiac? I had never tested with that reaction to gluten before. I'm like, this explains you're this type and it's this type. And that's why, so just let's clear this up. We're gonna get real. I could not have a bowel movement without 4 capsules of Miralax for 2 days.
Oh my God.
4.
So wait, time out.
Yeah.
That's a real poop problem.
It is. So talk about
And
feeling bad.
You didn't have this problem before.
I would, sometimes, but if, as long as I was hydrated and ate my vegetables and
you had it controlled.
I had it controlled.
Now it was out of control.
We are talking, yeah,
wow.
That's terrible. That's not healthy.
That's awful.
And so they were like, check mark, at least you're going. No.
Oh no.
And with my background, that's when I was like, something is wrong. So I started getting, and I know, because I work with my clients in long-term root cause stuff and always starting with what's going on with the gut. So, and then reading more about COVID attacking the nervous system. So in my research, I came across not just microbiome stuff, which I had some knowledge about, good, solid knowledge about. But then I started seeing this thing called the gut-brain axis and the nervous system, because I'm searching both of these things. And I'm like, all right, now we're cooking with Crisco. We're getting somewhere, right? We're getting somewhere. We're connecting some dots. And right about this time, I was scheduled for a scan and a test. And I had to stop taking everything that I had been taking at this point to make me feel better. And mind you, I was so nauseous every day, I would throw up before about 10:30. So I start at 5 in the morning, so, I kind of had it timed and to where between my clients or a group, I could go get sort of right. So I had to stop taking everything I was taking to take this test. So I stopped taking everything. And then we had a random flood here in South Texas. So it got rescheduled. So I had to stop taking all these vitamins, all the doses of all of this stuff, some of the medications for the mast cell from all of these things. So it extended it 3 more days. And my husband and I were somewhere we had been like a couple months before. And I walked up the stairs and I went, hey. I walked up the stairs and then I realized I wasn't dizzy. I wasn't nauseous. So what was happening with these loads of everything that was supposed to make me feel better because of what was going on in my gut, which I, we're going to put the pieces together later, was making me sick. It was a toxic load. So once I realized I stopped taking that, I'm like, all right. And that's when I was like, all right, full force ahead. I'm going straight to the root cause. Let's go gut, nervous system. I don't know as much about nervous system, but I'm a nerd. Let's figure it out. So I keep searching.
Wow.
And all of those pieces just kept pushing me of something is not right, wow. And in my head, it was like everybody that was trying to help me or treat me always prefaced it, well, we really don't know what we don't know. And then I thought, what? They're telling me they don't know better. It is my body. Let's figure it out. It's time to
amen.
It's time to listen to what she is telling me.
Yeah. So Lauren, you were literally diagnosed with long haulers or long COVID.
Yeah.
And you were in a research study. This wasn't like you just went online, you read some other people's stuff and self-diagnosed yourself. You legit had the testing done. They were following you. They were watching you. They didn't know what to do for you. So they just kind of threw you on this and that little hodgepodge of everything, which clearly wasn't working. And that's why I love your story. I love to really interview authentic, genuine people that have real proof. And it's not just hearsay. So you had mentioned to me when we talked earlier that you got into some groups, some social media groups, where you started to get into some community groups. And I really want this to be educational now for, before we get into solutions. So hang in there, everybody, we're gonna get to that. But I want to educate people because you said something to me. I want to ask you this question. Who are they seeing in these thousands upon thousands of people in these groups that have long haulers? What's the common denominator? Is there one? Tell us.
Okay, so there's several. In everybody's having a unique experience with some commonalities. Brain fog, my experience was tremendous. If you asked me what 4 + 4 was, I couldn't tell you. I could not tell you. So brain fog, confusion, memory loss, that debilitating fatigue, anxiousness, for folks that have never experienced anxiousness before, similar to what I did, fluttery sensations in their body. In commonalities of this, it is things like neuropathy, severe pain in body, hands and joints, feet and hands and legs seem to be the most affected. But just this overwhelming sense of, and kind of like what I experienced, even folks that just walking up a flight of stairs down the hall to the mailbox, even though their O2 stats are fine, just hard to breathe. I mean, and those are the most common there. Yeah. That to me, it maybe because I experienced it and I also lived trying to figure it out, but to me are going to be the most debilitating, let's say, for the average person, because they fall under those type of idiopathic autoimmune disease. It's not something you can see on a test,
Right.
I don't have heart damage now, praise Jesus,
Right.
It does some weird things sometimes, but my EKG comes out and I do experience some weird flutters. And there are people that are experiencing with COVID long haul much more acute damaging symptoms, but it's kind of these weird, almost silent things that are problematic, because I was just reading it in this Facebook book group earlier, and a lot of commonalities are my practitioners aren't listening to me. They think I'm crazy. They tell me to eat more vegetables, or and they're then getting referred out to like pain management doctors and all of these other things. But the commonalities of just this debilitating fatigue, brain fog, anxiety, and pain is something that's hard to describe to other people. I didn't share it with the closest to me. I did not. I thought you just suck it up.
Did you see, like, in these groups and these thousands of people, are you seeing an equal match of people that are all vaccinated, unvaccinated, asymptomatic, or just people that had COVID like you? What are we seeing with
that's a great question. There's not one number more than other that tips the scales, which just me as kind of a nerd makes me go, interesting. It's pretty equal.
So wait a second. I just want to stop on this, because this was what was very fascinating. Because I know a lot of people, I think we all do. I think if you're listening to this recording, sorry for the background noise, got some contractors here. It is what it is. If you can hear that, I can. But for those of you that are listening to this, I think we all know somebody. I've known people that I'm listening to these descriptions that you're giving and these symptoms, and I know many people, several, that have not been vaccinated or been vaccinated, and they've had COVID. I think everyone's had COVID. We've all had it one way or the other. And they're having these symptoms. So I want to make sure I'm hearing you clear that in these groups of one of them is like 70,000 people.
70,000 people.
70,000 people. So this is not like 700. This is a lot of people. And you're saying that what you're seeing in these groups is that it's a splattering of all of it, people that have been vaccinated versus people that have not been vaccinated versus asymptomatic.
Right.
There's people that are getting long haulers, all of the above, D, all of the above.
Yes, D, all of the above. And it's, and it is, and I find that something that makes me go,
exactly.
And so,
Exactly.
and especially, now that it's more common, because when I had it, I mean, a vaccine wasn't even in the picture, you know. Um, but what I think is interesting is we're seeing people that maybe never tested positive for COVID. So they are now saying, well, I guess I had it, I just was asymptomatic. But I've been Googling all of these symptoms and it made me find this group because this is exactly what I have now. So the unknown, what is a very thought-provoking situation is the unknown is there. We're talking millions and millions and millions and millions of people around the world could be experiencing this, which could be, I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot to take on. But in
It's
the
true. That's why I wanted to do this, Lauren.
yeah,
I felt really compelled when I heard your story, and then I talked with you,
yeah,
personally, privately. I just knew in my heart. I mean, I have a brother who has just, had all of his vaccines, and he's really struggling right now with a bunch of symptoms. And I'm listening to you, and I'm like, I'm going to be sending this recording to him. So get ready, brother. You're going to be listening to this because,
yeah,
he's just like, oh my gosh, like what the heck? I've been really sick. So I think what we need to do is just self-aware. And honestly,
exactly.
Lauren, my husband has a rare disease, and I feel like what people are going through with COVID, I've been through for years with my husband's
Right.
disease. It is self-awareness. And that's what I want to talk about next is we've educated people on some of these weird symptoms or symptoms that just, where does this symptom belong to? And so Lauren, as you really dove deep into your specialty of experience and education, you started looking at the microbiome, you started looking at gut health. How did you find Amare?
So what I did, so it was that gut health, and then what tipped it, because there's lots of information about gut health, and really then using words like microbiome. But when I paired it with nervous system, it came up with something that was I had seen probably, but I wasn't really in tune with, called the gut brain axis. Not just your gut, but how does the whole situation from your brain to your gut work? And I came across a video of this Dr. Sean Talbot was somebody that popped up. So I watched it, and he was talking about, some products called Amari. And so I looked at them and I was like, okay. So I started looking into like the quality, and the same thing I would do if I was going to recommend, like I do recommending supplements for my clients, looking at the sourcing, looking at the quality, looking at all of these things. And mind you, I was just in a state of, I mean, the hot mess doesn't even describe it. The exhaustion, the fatigue, the fear. And so while I'm studying this, I'm like, I got to listen to my body. I need some space to be still. And I just prayed to God, instead of saying, fix me, heal me, make me feel better. This is what I have. I give it to you. Use me, teach me. This is it. What do we got? And that day at my boutique fitness studio, I got a new member by the name of Jess Yonda, and kind of talked to her a little bit. And then, she kept to herself. And so I'm still researching Amari, and I'm looking at it and doing whatever and doing some things, and go down a rabbit trail with something else. And I look at Jess has a website, and all of a sudden it has Amari on it. And I'm like, okay, connect the dots. Bam.
You're kidding me.
No, and you didn't even know that, did you?
No. Oh my gosh. And I adore Jess. That is an awesome story. Wow. I just got goosebumps everywhere. So you found Amari and Dr. Sean Talbot first, and then literally Jess walks in, and you've never met her before.
I didn't.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
so like what I discovered on Jess's website is she's affiliated with these very products I had spent, and it was about 4 weeks I had been really digging into. Mind you, at this point, I was taking anything else. I was, except for Miralax, a lot of it. And I had gone completely gluten-free and dairy-free and was following an AIP diet. So I was feeling a smidge better because inflammation was coming down. I know how to do those things. And I text Jess and I said, let me tell you, I don't know what is going on here, but I've done a lot of research and I need this. And let me tell you why. And so she helped curate a way that because what Amari does, mental wellness was not on my radar. I wanted to root cause, address my gut, make, let's give my nervous system a chance and my immune system a chance to deal with whatever crazy town is going on in this thing. And I am happy to report about 6 days after starting to address that, I haven't used Miralax since.
Wow. It's like the ultimate poop story.
Yes, exactly.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Wow. Wow. So, okay, let's really start to talk about, I want to, first of all, talk to solutions and expectations for people.
Right.
And I want to point this out too, like, listen, we are not saying, no one is saying, full disclosure, that this is a cure for long COVID. I will put that out there so it can never come back legally to Laura, myself, or Amari. No one's saying that. But what I hear you saying loud and clear, Lauren, is this, that our gut is our second brain. It's a massive missing link to human health. When it's off, right, you're off.
100%.
And COVID got it off. COVID jacked up your gut health. Is that accurate?
Oh, 100%. So really, I've been addressing this now, gosh, what month are we in? I don't know, 9 months, nine months, addressing through this specific support for my gut, my brain, and my nervous system. And I still have some symptoms, but I am functional. Actually, I'm more functional than I was before. Now I know a whole lot more about mental wellness with all these other things. But what is encouraging is now there is real research coming out saying how COVID destroys and dysregulate the gut lining, how it changes the gut. So it's not just, it's nice to have a little bit of that backing in there. It's been my lived experience 100%, and I will say that all day long. But that association of the effect that the virus has in the gut and the effect then that has on your brain and then on the rest of your nervous system, because many of my symptoms are neurological.
Oh. And I'm listening to this whole thing and just one word is in my mind: pioneer. I'm a pioneer. You and so many others are pioneering long COVID, and my hope and prayer is that we can do a lot of prevention. If people start to get sick, we now are learning and figuring out what's working, what's not, and how we can, the tools, nutrition that we can take to be able to help our bodies, our guts, not get so out of whack and replenish what we need to, so that we don't go into this state of long COVID. And that's what I'm really excited about. So expectations, you noticed, how soon did you start to notice more of an awakening, like the long COVID beginning to lift when you first got started with Amari?
It was about a week.
Wow, it's pretty fast.
It was, well, and really what it did is, the way I describe it, is it kind of just started taking the edge off. It was like a chisel on that plexiglass. It just, the edge was coming off. It was still there, but it wasn't quite as oppressive. It wasn't quite as oppressive in that fatigue, in that anxiousness, in that pain. But
Sorry, I just have to, I'm having this like visualization of all the plexiglass off and behind.
Well, I'm a visual person. That's like it was. Let me out. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's just, it was just, while it was happening,
yeah,
for me, it was such a delicious experience, because I felt a spark of hope.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So you started to notice these subtle changes that was like this awakening.
Right.
And it's true for any illness. Listen, if you're listening to this, whether you're suffering from long COVID, you're not sure what, you've got an autoimmune disease, you've got diabetes, whatever you got going on, you got to be patient. You got to give it time. And
Right.
you can never hurt yourself by restoring gut health. It can only help. If you're not pooping right, you're not think of poop for a second. It's full of toxins. And if you're not releasing that, you are recycling it. That's disgusting. Never
Yeah.
thought of it quite like that before. It's probably too graphic for you all, but it is true. Your gut health matters, and part of gut health is digestion, but part of gut health is also way more than we ever knew. We have all these neurotransmitters in our gut, and we have all these different strains of bacteria in our gut, and different strains do different affect different things.
And that was probably the greatest learning, because I knew that, but I didn't really know it to that extent until I started digging in more and more. And the difference of, yeah, I've taken very high quality probiotics before, but I couldn't tell you what those strains were supposed to do for me. So, I didn't need to take a strain. I didn't need to take a strain of probiotic for diarrhea, obviously. That would have been terrible. Maybe that was part of the problem. But until you get a very, for me, a very, very synergistic approach it was just a game changer. And you asked about results. So part of that COVID long haul study is get my blood draw every week. I still do. So it's really cool. So I can see a lot of data. So I mentioned the vitamin D. And I was also showing some anemia. And I told you I'd been on these large prescribed doses of vitamins for 9 months, and it never got better. 19 days, guess what started to come up?
What?
My vitamin D was coming, no more anemia. I never supplemented with iron, and this was my experience. My gut was getting better. I couldn't absorb anything before. And
wow.
So it didn't matter what I was putting in supplementally. Yep. I was getting vitamin IV infusions. I was getting vitamin D intramuscular injections. I never felt better.
Hey, time out. Because I know there's a lot of IV. My husband does a lot of vitamin IV.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting that you just said that. So you were doing intravenously nutrition through IV, and your numbers that they were checking through your blood work was not working.
Nope.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you kept doing the same thing, added in Amare, and 19 days later,
I stopped all those other supplements. I was not taking any vitamin D.
Wow.
I was not taking any iron. I wasn't supplementing with any of I wasn't doing anything because it had been making me so sick.
Wow.
And so, but my liver enzymes were way out of whack, which we assumed was from the long COVID.
Wow.
When I stopped doing all those other things and started addressing, I was like, we're just going to do one thing. We'll do one thing and see what works. And then we're going to check it off the list and try something else. I'm like, at that point, I was like, we're going to need a plan and second job. So, and
wow.
So that's,
wow. So the big question is people are going to ask, and I just have to say, like, what were some of the specific things that you got on that helped you?
So the most important and having a great support. So Jess was my support, and she's also, she's 10 times more, which I've come to learn because I just love her to death, and she'll be a friend for the rest of my life. Is same thing. Let's figure out what works. Let's start with something. What do we want to address first? So, just starting in the fundamentals, just starting at the baseline, and then adding one or two things. We were a little bit more aggressive to get rid of that Miralax. So lots of digestive support, and then a few other things. Some other things that help, or, the way I talk about them now, even with my clients or other people that are, asking me about my experience, I said, these are your feel good now, to take that edge off, to start chipping at that plexiglass. These are your feel good now, because you can't out execute feeling bad with willpower. It will never work. You can't. If you feel crummy, you can't, and not for very long. I mean, we're talking 10 minutes, 2 days max.
Wow. That's
You can't.
really interesting you said that, because when my husband was at his worst with his disease, he was at Mayo Clinic and they sent him to the psychology ward, no lie,
Yeah.
psychiatric ward. And they labeled him the most depressed person, the happiest depressed person they'd ever seen. And he's like, well, I feel miserable. So he's like, when you don't feel good, you're not going to be like exuberantly happy, right? And so it's like, we have to think with common sense. But what I'm hearing you say is, it's an individual cases to look at, where are your symptoms, what is bothering you the most,
Right.
and start there. Start with
100%.
those symptoms, which
Yeah.
is so simple and so brilliant, and nobody looks at. You don't go in and most doctors will even say this. They just don't. And I think that's what we have to educate people on, is that we are our own best advocates. And I've worked with some amazing doctors who will always say the patient usually has themselves diagnosed. I'll ask them what they think they have, because they're feeling what they're feeling. And it's so true. And I'm hearing that from you. Like, you and Jeff really looked at like what you were struggling with, and you started there.
Exactly.
So I want to encourage all of you listening to write down, what are the top 3 or 4 things that you feel like you're struggling with. And I just want to encourage you, like, you don't have anything to lose, but definitely give this a shot, or share this with somebody that that it just hasn't been feeling good for a while. And we need to start talking about this and stop being so silenced about this, because it's real, it exists. And I love that they're doing research. And Lauren, I'm blown away that you are part of that research. That is just outstanding and amazing. And it is sometimes through our worst sufferings that the greatest blessings come from. And your unfortunate suffering is going to bless a lot of other people. It's going to help them, God willing, never go through what you did. And that's like my husband. That's one of the huge reasons why I came here to Amari, is I knew in my heart, when I saw this, that this was a massive missing link for a lot of things. And I remember thinking for years, I was in hospitals with him in clinics, and I listened and I absorbed and I observed. And the common denominators that most people are struggling with, sleep and exhaustion and pain and feeling overwhelmed and having anxiety and panic attacks. It didn't matter if it was the caregiver or the patient. It was very similar. And they were just thrown on meds and they weren't getting better. And I remember looking at what this brand was, thinking, my God, if this does what it says, even if it does it a fraction, even just a tiny bit, as my husband said, if this can help somebody 20%, this could be the difference between them taking their life, because they're so miserable. Yeah. And it's true. It's true. So Lauren, before I let you go, I just have to ask, is there anything else that you want to share with everyone listening?
Yes, I think that this is important to talk about. I think that we're going to see much more of this. You may be experiencing this. Somebody that has something going on there. And I've used this in my coaching for a long time in the root causes, but this is it. This is another level. And I will never not use this for myself, for my clients. But in my lived experience with this, for me, that linchpin was that first break of that chisel, of that plexiglass. And what it did, it was hope. I had hope that I didn't have to feel like this. I didn't have to feel like this all the time.
Wow. Lauren, thank you for giving everyone hope today. And for anyone listening to this in the future, like you do, there's always hope. I just want to thank you so much. I'm excited to follow your progress, and I'm excited to have you back on in a few months out, 6 months out, a year out, just to see like, how are you doing and what is this looking like for you and how many people have also been helped. It's going to be pretty fun. So thank you for joining us. For those of you listening in, listen, if you are really curious if this could potentially help you a little, a lot, or transform your whole health, talk to the person that shared this with you. And let's help see if this can help you and really look at what's bothering you the most, starting to address those issues, and then climbing, like chiseling, breaking the, getting that crack going in your plexiglass, just to shatter, spider web and shatter the plexiglass and bring it down. That's our goal, is to bring the plexiglass down. And gosh, Lauren, you look amazing. You're just a beautiful woman inside and out. It's been an honor to interview you today. And thank you for sharing your vulnerability. I know some people feel awkward talking about this because there's so much controversy. This is not to be controversial. There's nothing controversial about it because we're seeing thousands of people. It doesn't matter what side of the fence they're on. We're all in this together. And I think we're going to be healed with love and healed by taking care of ourselves. It can only help. So you just did a beautiful job portraying that. And I just want to thank you, because I'm hoping that this will be a piece that can really help people heal on all levels. So God bless you. Thank you so much. Giving you a big heart.
Thank you, Sarah.
Absolutely. All right. Take care. All right. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.